Hey there, my name is Lexi and thank you so much for tuning in to my channel. Today I am going to be giving you my view and opinion on the movie Sinners, but from the perspective of a music artist. And I also want to get into whether or not Sammie sold his soul. I'm going to tell you why I don't think he did, but you got to stay tuned to find out why. I wouldn't call this a movie review per se, but this is a discussion, like I said, between music people. I'm a music artist, and the way that the movie hit me really resonated with my creative side just because of some of the themes that were presented, which I want to get into a discussion with you today about. There are spoilers in this discussion, so if you have not seen the movie, make sure you go check it out. Go to the theaters and watch it in IMAX if you got the budget, because that just makes the experience so much better. But go watch the movie, come back, and then you won't have anything spoiled for you. But this is an alert, spoilers ahead if you have not seen the movie. So first I want to give you my overall impression of the movie, what I thought about it, would I recommend you to see it, and then I'm going to get into the main themes that I pointed out that I got for myself as a music artist. So overall, love the movie, 10 out of 10. It is directed by Ryan Coogler and it is starring Michael B. Jordan, Miles Caton. I think that's how you say it. Caton, something like that. I'm gonna say Miles Caton because that sounds cooler. Wunmi Mosaku and Haley Steinfeld. It's set in 1932 Mississippi, and then it brings us to 1992. I think in Chicago is where it ends off. Loved it. This was actually my second time seeing the movie. The first time I saw the movie with my boyfriend and we saw it in IMAX theaters. Highly recommend you experience it in that way, because the way that the music and the sound is all mixed and just immersive, 10 out of 10 experience. The movie itself runs 2 hours and 17 minutes, and I would highly recommend that you watch this movie. This was my second time watching it, and I was picking it for like different symbols and themes that maybe I missed the first go around, and maybe any plot holes in the story. But I will tell you, like, this is a solid storyline, and I didn't really find any plot holes. Everything had a natural progression, especially from like a Black person's point of view. There are just certain things we wouldn't do or certain things that we would question before doing. And it's just very refreshing that this original piece of work is as good as it is. It was made by a Black man. It's made by a Black man. Mostly Black cast. Like, everyone did an amazing job. Low-key a musical. Not really a musical, but low-key a musical. Just because the main character, Sammie, he loves music. He has this guitar that was given to him by his cousins, Smoke and Stack, who are both played by Michael B. Jordan. No, he does not have a twin, but it'll be fun to confuse future generations, right? But anyway, overall, 10 out of 10. I would highly recommend that you go see this movie once, twice, 3 times, and then again when it hits streaming platforms. Now let's get into the main themes that I picked out as a music artist. The first point I want to get into is all money ain't good money. And I'm sure that you have heard this phrase used a million times before. There were 3 specific examples in this film that I feel like really highlights that theme of all money ain't good money, and it highlights the theme of greed in a sense, right? So I have 3 different spots in the movie that really resonated with this for me. 2 of them involving Delta Slim, 1 involving cornbread. The first instance is when they go to the train station to find Delta Slim. He's playing his harmonica, and Stack asks him, hey, do you want to come play for my club tonight? And at first, Delta Slim is like, you know what? You might be paying me this much money tonight, which is more than I usually make, but I'm just going to stick with the club that I've been playing at. They've been open for 10 years. They've been paying me this much faithfully. I get paid my money and I can drink and smoke as much as I want. But then Stack offers him basically double or maybe even triple. I think it was $10 he was comparing it to, and then he offered him like $40 and all the beer that he could drink. And Delta Slim was like, man, I really can't turn that down. And then he gave him Irish beer, which must have been delicious for him, and he was sold. And there are some parts from this that I admire about Delta Slim's character, because I've been faced with situations like this where we do want to chase the big opportunities, but to the detriment of often forgetting about the opportunities that have stayed steady and consistent, or forgetting about the people, the clients that have stayed steady and consistent. And I've heard about it with other professions as well, like hairstylists mainly, and maybe even nail technicians, where you finally get a celebrity client, but the celebrity client wants you to drop all of your people, or to fit you in, like they want you to fit them in as like a squeeze in, or to cancel someone else just because they are who they are. And it's like, dang, I really want the opportunity, but also I want to stay loyal, and I want to stay fair, and I want to keep my promise to something that I have already committed myself to. So I admire Delta Slim for that. But unfortunately, greed and maybe even gluttony on the side of the alcohol, he let that get in his way. Like that was one of his vices, and Stack knew exactly what to do to get him to his club. So as we see later on in the movie, had Slim held strong on turning that offer down, he might still be alive and with us through the end of the film. There's another instance in the movie after they get Delta Slim from the train station. It's Delta Slim, Sammie, and Stack in the car, and they're riding to pick up cornbread. On the way there, they see like a chain gang, and Delta Slim tells a story of how he and his friend were offered to essentially perform for some white people, I think, and it was really great money. So they go and they perform, they get the money. Sammie asks Delta, well, what did you do with your money? And he points at his bottle. Well, he has a flask, and he's like, I drank all of mine. Well, what did your friend do with his? Well, he took the money and he was going to start like a church in Little Rock, Arkansas. But he got on the train, fell asleep. Some white boys found him with the money in his pocket. They made up a story about him having stolen it from a white man. Then they beat him, they killed him, they cut off his manhood. So this is not necessarily an example of all money isn't good money, but rather an example of how we do have choices and intentions that we make with the things that we come into possession of. With Delta Slim, he decided to squander his money on the drink. With his friend, he was going to do something very good with the money, but the times that they were living in just did not allow for him to make it to his destination, unfortunately. And there's also a deeper message in there sometimes of how it feels like the people who do all the wrong things get all the accolades and they get to live and stay around longer, versus people who are doing the right things have it harder, or they get taken from us a little sooner. So there could be that hidden theme in there as well, but that could be another example of all money ain't good money, although indirectly. But the last example I have of all money not being good money is the character Cornbread. Again, they're all in the car coming from the train station. They're driving past a cotton field to pick up cornbread, and Stack is offering like, hey man, I got a job opportunity. I can pay you a lot of money. It's going to make your lady do some strange things for that change. And he's like, no, I'm almost done filling my quota, and we're fine. I just want to finish this and get home to my family. But then the wife is like, well, actually, how much money are we talking? And she kind of encourages Cornbread to take the job because it is more money than what they're used to. And unfortunately, by end of the movie, Cornbread does not make it. He doesn't make it. That's another example of all money ain't good money. And he actually didn't even want the initial offer. But at the encouragement of his wife, who he trusts, he ended up doing it. But unfortunately, that ended up being the last time she saw him. Maybe, maybe not. Oh yeah, definitely, actually. Definitely, they didn't make it. So we have all of those examples of why all money is not good money. And that translates really well within the industry as well. All money ain't good money. All opportunities are not good for you. Sometimes things are attached to big names or celebrities and we think that it's a great opportunity, but you have no idea what's attached to those so-called big names. You have no idea what's attached to that money that might be more than you're used to making, but you have no idea what comes along with that. And the idea of all money ain't good money, it's usually, we think things that look good for us, we think they are good for us, but they're not. They just look good. And actually it ends up hurting us in the long run. That can be said for money. That can be said for what we put into our body. An example that I would give you is drinking energy drinks, right? There's a lot of these energy drinks out here that promise a boost in energy and a boost in physical performance, but it's like, at what cost are they doing that to you? They have all this caffeine, they have all these sugars, all these artificial sweeteners, all of these artificial ingredients and dyes that go into the drink. And it's really, they might be giving you that energy momentarily, but then you end up crashing and it ends up not being a great situation. In fact, there have been some horror stories from people using energy drinks. But that's why I want to tell you about Magic Mind, because Magic Mind is actually something that is good for you, and it does not have all of those detrimental ingredients in it. So Magic Mind, it does have a little caffeine in it, but it's by natural means. That's because of the ingredient green matcha tea that's in there. And there's only 3 grams of sugar in Magic Mind because of the agave ingredient. A lot of times the things that we think are cool, they're not actually good for us. And then on the reverse side, things that are actually good for us often don't seem very cool. And usually when you hear like organic, people think, oh, okay, you're one of those people. But with Magic Mind, no, it's not like that. Like, the ingredients are organic and they are natural, but they are good for you, and they're not going to be to the detriment of your health or your overall function. So Magic Mind is good for focus, it's good for a boost in energy, and it's good for a boost in mental performance. And it has natural ingredients like Bacopa monieri, L-theanine, lion's mane mushroom. I mentioned the green matcha tea, vitamin B, the whole vitamin B complex, and just 12 major ingredients that naturally give you the energy, the performance that you're looking for. And I would love for you to be able to try it for yourselves. Go to magicmind.com/LexAPR to get 20% off of your purchase. That's magicmind.com/LexAPR to get 20% off of your purchase. I know that it doesn't sound cool to say organic ingredients, but it's actually really good for you. And think about your health. Think about what you want to accomplish. You need something that's going to be great over a long period of time, not just a quick punch in the moment. Learn from Delta Slim, you know. Maybe if Delta Slim would have stuck with that consistent gig he had on Saturdays versus going to the club juke with Stack and Smoke, maybe he would still be here with us. That's just my thoughts on that. Y'all go ahead and try Magic Mind and let me know what you think after you've done so. But let's get back into the discussion of the movie Sinners. The next theme that I want to talk to y'all about is understanding the power of expression and how we use music. And I have 3 bullet points that I made on this. The first one is the idea that music attracts spirits, both good and bad. And then I asked myself the question, which side do you play for? So the very beginning of the movie, there's this whole animated montage that explains that music is spiritual, it's energy, it pierces the veil of past and future, it pierces the veil of good and evil, and it attracts all kinds of spirits. So the light, you see the light and the dark, it's all converging into one space. And I thought that was a really cool way to look at music, because, and I just did an interview with my friend Azariah where I was saying to him, you know, I've actually had to learn that music is a feeling and it is something that should be spiritual. How you decide to use that energy, you have to decide, are you going to play for the good side or play for the bad side? You know, I think about the people who came to the juke, the club juke that Smoke and Stack opened. They just came to have a good time. They just wanted to unwind, and maybe they had a hard day's work on the field and they just wanted to let loose for one night and indulge a little bit in some liquor and some dancing, nothing too crazy, right? But you know, even though these people may have had great intentions, unfortunately, there were others in the midst of them that did not have good intentions, and it messed with everybody around them. You know, Sammie's character was not inherently a bad person. He was just a young boy doing what young boys do. You know, he wants to play some music and chase some tail. That's essentially all that he was guilty of up to this point in this movie. But unfortunately, he may have been drawn into, you know, the sins of his cousins and any bad energy that was following them around. And, you know, Smoke and Stack didn't necessarily do anything bad up to that point. I mean, Smoke shot a couple people, and maybe, you know, at this point, we don't see what they've done up north. We don't exactly know the full story of how they came to get back down to Mississippi. We just know that they left for 7 years and then they came back. Unfortunately, Mary is attached to Stack, and she ends up being the one that causes a lot of the downfall. And you know, there's another person, there's Grace, she's the Asian lady who runs a convenience store, and by her hands as well, unfortunately, a lot of bad things happen. But you know, these people are not inherently bad people, it's just that bad things happened to them. But when people make bad decisions, Sammie's father is a preacher. He said, if you keep dancing with the devil, one day he's gonna follow you home. And unfortunately, through people like Mary, or maybe even Grace, who decided to make one decision, it affected the entirety of everybody. And you know, who are those people connected to? That's how everyone gets involved in a bad situation, because somebody can make one wrong move, one bad decision. So even though they all came together to just start a business and have a good time and make some money, unfortunately, that intention was corrupted by some of the decisions of other people. You know, maybe there was pride on Mary's end that would not allow her to let go of Stack. And because of that pride, because she kept coming around and not staying away like he told her to, that ended up being the detriment of, you know, the brothers and the juke joint. Like, all of it ended up being to the detriment of the juke joint. To get back to the theme of understanding expression and how we use music, so none of these people are inherently bad though, right? But I did mention that in the beginning montage, it says that there's magic within music, there's spirituality within it. It attracts the good and the bad. So we have to understand that some of us are going to be the light, and that attracts people from all walks of life. And that's when the vampires are introduced to us, Remick, and then he turns people and they show up to the juke joint, whatever. The reason why I asked the question, who do you play for, is because it can be, music can be very much a spiritual experience. And if you're not privy to the things that you are attracting, the people who are around you, it could be to the detriment of yourself and to the detriment of the people around you. So what are you engaging in? What are you encouraging? What's the messaging? You know, I wish that it was as simple as just making music and performing, but unfortunately, that's just not the world we live in. Unfortunately and fortunately, there's more power to it with that. We have the power to influence people's energies, influence people's mindsets. So it's very important that you understand, what are you doing? What are you saying? Who are you attracting? How are you steering people with what you're doing, what you're saying? You know, what kind of people are attracted to you? Not that you necessarily need to help them, although I personally believe that we should use our art in a way of service, but just being aware of how what you do affects yourself and those around you, I feel is so very important. And this movie, Sinners, really just animates all of that. Like, not animates, it illustrates all of that. So I would use Sinners as a cautionary tale of being very aware of your method of expression and being aware of which direction are you using it, which wolf are you feeding, the good wolf, the bad wolf, the good spirits, the evil spirits. Are you going to be part of the light or part of the dark? And that brings me to my next point, which is both sides want your gift. We see in this movie, and I didn't catch it the first time that I watched it, but we see in this movie that Sammie is being pulled in two different directions. And I'm going to explain why this movie hit so hard for me as a music artist, if you can't already tell by how passionate I am about this topic. But Sammie is being pulled by the light and the dark. He's being pulled by the good and the bad, the well-meaning and the not so well-intentioned people, right? So on one hand, he's got some people discouraging him. On the other hand, he's got people encouraging him. In the beginning, his dad is not even discouraging him from playing the guitar. He does use it as a way to lure him back into the church, but we don't see until the end of the movie that the dad is essentially asking Sammie to choose between salvation and music. And we see what Sammie ends up choosing, right? But throughout, he's being encouraged by people. He's being encouraged by Smoke and Stack and Delta Slim and Pearline and Mary. Everyone's like, wow, you really have a gift. We can make some money off of this. Sammie just wanted to make music and play the guitar, but everyone else is like, wow, you're really good. There's even a moment in the movie where, you know, Delta Slim is about to bring Sammie up on stage, and Annie is standing behind Sammie, and she gives him like a little squeeze on the shoulder, like, hey, he's talking about you, you're up next, as a form of encouragement, right? So they want him to use his gift. They want him to utilize his gift. However, just like I said, good and evil spirits are attracted to that light. He also attracts and is encouraged by the vampire Remick, who shows up with the two people that he turned. And Remick at one point in the movie says, we could write beautiful music together, and your music is a light. It can reach people that I can't, and you can bring those people to me, essentially. So there's something very powerful about what Sammie holds through his voice, through his guitar, through his talent with music. So both sides want your gift. But again, there's that question of which side do you play for? Which side? It's the question of choice. And I also want to point out that the dad, when he lured Sammie into the church in the beginning of the movie, he has Sammie read the scripture 1 Corinthians 10 and 13, which I actually pulled up in my Bible. So 1 Corinthians 10 verse 13 says, no temptation has overtaken you except such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able, but with the temptation will also make the way of escape, that you may be able to bear it. So God will never give you more than you can bear. And if you feel like it's too much for you to bear, God gives you a way out. And we see that in the movie as well. You know, this is more than Sammie signed up for, but there are so many people around him who are protecting him and keeping him safe. Delta Slim ends up sacrificing himself, and Smoke ends up sacrificing himself to help Sammie get back home, essentially. So, you know, God will always give you a way out, but we do also have that first responsibility to choose whether or not we will or will not be tempted. It's also very interesting to me that during the fight scene, Delta Slim is sacrificing himself to help the others get upstairs, to buy them more time to survive and escape, right? In that sacrifice of himself, he actually also hands the guitar to Sammie, and what that said to me was, here, you take your gift and you run. Keep with your gift and you get out of here. Don't use your gift in this space, essentially, is what he was saying. And I just thought that was so cool. It was like symbolism, right? Like, music is what you make it. And if you want to get super like religious with it, Lucifer was the best steward of music. He was the best singer. He made the best music. He played the best music. Like, that was his ministry, right? And we see that in the movie, you can choose good or evil. We see that both sides want it. That guitar becomes a symbol of, do we hold on to it or do we let it go? The thing that brought him into the situation at the juke, which was his guitar, is also the thing that ends up saving him in the end, because vampires don't like silver. He hits Remick over the head with his guitar as a last ditch effort to escape from him, and the silver plate gets lodged into Remick's head, and it ultimately buys Sammie enough time for someone to come up and get him in the heart with a stake, and that ends Remick's life. And all the other vampires caught up in the sun, they go away, yada, yada, yada. So it's a really interesting symbolism to me that, especially by the end of the movie, Sammie's all beat up and he's just seen all these crazy things and he's gone through this crazy experience, and all that's left of the guitar is like the frets where the strings are tightened. That's all he has left, and maybe a few strings hanging off. And he goes to his father and he's looking traumatized, and the dad uses it as a moment to try to get his son to finally get on the straight and narrow, right? Like, choose God, put the guitar down, drop the guitar, son. And as we see, Sammie does not drop the guitar. He holds on to it and it becomes his career. And all of that to say, like, this movie really made me put some things into perspective for myself, because by the end of the movie, I am fully expecting Sammie to never want to touch a guitar again, to never want to be involved in music again. But he grows well into his old age playing that guitar, playing music, singing the blues, and he lives a long life. He has the reminder, he has the scar on his face, he has the reminder of what happened that day, but he made the decision to still move forward with his gift, with his talent, and not let that terrible experience keep him from doing what he loves, which is playing and singing the blues. And the way that I'm relating this to my own experience is, in the past few months, I have been heavily questioning whether or not I want to stay involved within music, whether or not it's something that I want to keep pursuing, because I've been doing it for so long and not necessarily getting the results that I want. And not necessarily, don't get me wrong, I have great successes, but it's just, you know how you get in your mind that you want to be somewhere by a certain time frame, certain time period, and it doesn't happen that way, so you start to get discouraged. This movie for me was symbolic in that, what do you do after you've witnessed the most disgusting parts of the thing? Like, it comes with what you love to do. Do you continue? Because now you know the demons that you have to fight against. Now you know the temptations that you have to be wary of. Or do you call it quits and decide to go do something else? Neither one is the wrong answer here. Neither one is the wrong answer. But for me, I have been saying for years that I feel like there's a higher purpose attached to why I keep getting music opportunities, and why I have the gift of singing, and why I have the ability to record myself and help other artists, like the ability to help other artists with their art and to create their music. And I just things keep coming into my life that keeps pulling me back into why I should stick with it. And especially, like, I feel like Sammie being encouraged by everybody to do it, but then this terrible thing happens and it makes you question whether or not you want to do it. For me, it's being in the industry for so long and suffering some abuses, but then wondering, like, man, do I want to deal with these horrible, terrible things, these terrible people, you know? Or do I just want to maybe live a simpler life where I don't have to worry about these temptations, these demons? And it's been a very interesting 6 months, but just like those people who encourage Sammie, opportunities pop up, projects that I worked on years ago start to release and they start to go into the world, and people start seeing, like, oh my gosh, LexC, you're really talented. You've been working, you've been doing a lot. And they send me praises and they send me encouragement, and that feeds me and gives me a little more strength to keep going with the music. And I was actually on the verge of not doing music anymore, and I got the opportunity to sing with a corporate band that basically lets me tour singing once a week. And it's like, okay, Lord, I see you. So I was totally expecting Sammie to give up. I didn't know what to expect, but I was thinking that he would have given it up. But to see him choose the music at the end, that really lit a fire for me, like the burning bush, not like hell. It really lit a fire for me, and it has my flame burning brighter, my light shining brighter. And it's made me decide that, you know, I have seen some of the worst parts of the industry. At least now I know what to expect. So I don't want to run from it anymore. I want to learn to be strong enough to handle it, and learn to be strong enough to not succumb to the temptations or the evil that inevitably comes with anything that we do. That's the duality of life. There's always a choice of good and evil. And I want to continue to see what it would look like if I push through music, you know? I want to continue to see what that would look like, which brings me to my last and final point. Did Sammie sell his soul? After seeing Sinners the first time, I was online, on TikTok, on Twitter, and there's all these discussions. I love that we are collectively having, like, dialogue on this movie. It feels like as a community we have this thing that we're so passionate about right now. But there's something, you know, one of the themes is like, oh, Sammie sold his soul because you cannot see his reflection in the mirror. I don't think Sammie sold his soul. I think he saw what he saw and he knew what he had to deal with, and he decided that that's not going to stop me from playing music. And that's what he did. He played music into his old age. Now, some of y'all would say that he sold his soul at some point in the movie because at the end, you can't see his reflection in the mirror. I'm going to debunk that and challenge that and say that on this second watch, there was no moment that I could pinpoint where Sammie would have had time to sell his soul. Like, I feel like that would have been more strongly implied. There were little like nuggets within the movie that gave you an idea of kind of how the story was gonna go. Like when Remick turned up to those people's houses and he saw the Klansman hood and whatever. That was like a little Easter egg that the movie threw. It gave absolutely no hints that Sammie had sold his soul. What I think actually happened is that the camera needed a way to cheat the view because the camera was looking directly at them in front of the mirror. I think they just did some cool camera tricks so that you wouldn't see them in the mirror, and maybe somehow they ended up taking his reflection out. But there is a frame at those end credits where you can see Sammie's reflection in the bottom right hand corner of the mirror. So no, he was not bitten, and no, he did not sell his soul. And the other thing that tells us that he did not sell his soul and like he's not gonna live forever, I don't think people who sell their souls live forever. But the other thing that lets me know that he did not sell his soul, we can still see his reflection. And one of the last things that Stack says to him is he leans in and he sniffs him. He says, "Yeah, you don't have much time left, huh? I could change that for you." And he's like, "Nah, I think," and Sammie's like, "Nah, I think I'm ready to go. I don't think I want to be here any longer." So just based off of those things alone, I would say that no, Sammie did not sell his soul, which, what a relief, because that also means neither do we as creative people, neither do we as music artists. We can choose to push through, we can choose to be strong, we can choose to continue to use our gift and share our gift with the world. Despite some of the disgusting and nasty things that we see, that doesn't have to stop us from doing what we love. At least we know what it is. And actually, the twins say something like to that degree, right? They're riding in the car with Sammie, and Sammie's under the impression that up north in Chicago, a black man can do what he wants. And the twins are like, nah, it's the same up north. They just have a different way of doing it. We decided to come back down here because we know how to deal with what's down here. At least we know how to deal with what's down here. So that is my review, not review, of the movie Sinners, my discussion of the movie Sinners and how it hit me as a music artist, and the different themes that I picked out and the different questions I asked myself as a music artist. So tell me, do you resonate with the themes that I picked out in the movie? Have you seen it for yourself yet? Even if I spoiled it for you, you should still go ahead and watch it because it is 10 out of 10 experience, and it's Black creatives, and it's an original story, and we need to send a message to Hollywood that we want original stories. So go out and support it in its first month in theaters, and yeah, I would highly recommend you do that. Let me know what you think about it. Let me know what themes you pick up on, what themes resonate with you, which scenes resonate with you in the movie as well, and tell me all of that in the comment section. Let's have our own discussion. Also, make sure you go to magicmind.com/LexAPR to get 20% off of your order of Magic Mind. Not all ingredients that sound good are good for you, but Magic Mind has great ingredients, so take advantage of that and let me know what you think about that little drinkity drink as well. But thank you so much for tuning in to my discussion on the movie Sinners from a music artist's point of view. Until next time, my name is Lexi. Peace.